Alright, so here's the deal. You know, it's Christmas time is one of those times of year that's really weird, you know? And I remember growing up as a kid, and Christmas was not that great for me. I mean, my brothers and sisters can testify that none of us went out of our way to have Christmas together. And it wasn't for any big reason other than it usually resulted in an argument or a fight, very typical of a dysfunctional family. And in America, I don't believe there's anything as a functional family. I mean, we're all, not only do we all fall short of the glory of God, but do we ever fall short of our own standards and the standards of other people and things like that. But, I can't help but remember the times, the good times, as a child. For example, do you remember, I don't know if you had these, I had these, but these pajamas that you would get into, like the onesies, but all the way up to like 6 years old. I remember a red one with white feet, and if my niece Carrie's watching this, you had a matching one. And we used to argue about whose was better, and they were the exact same thing. I think yours had red feet, mine had white feet, or vice versa, but then we'd go to bed and we'd anticipate Santa coming down the chimney to have Christmas presents, and and it wasn't always like that. I mean, my mom and dad got divorced in the 80s, early 80s. I can't remember. I think it was 80 or 81, somewhere in there. And when that happened, Christmas took a turn. I was no longer the spoiled little brat that everybody thinks I was because, well, dad didn't have much money and mom didn't have any money. But somehow, my mom always made Christmas happen. Whether if it was a lot of little gifts or one big gift and maybe a few small gifts, but Christmas always happened. And, now I'm older and I have my own children, and as they grow up, Ryan's 17, Sean just turned 16, Mackenzie's 11, soon to be 12. And I can't help but think, what are the Christmas memories that they have? There's times where they sat around the tree and they're with grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles and great grandma and grandpas and all that stuff, and we'd all get together and have a big feast that afternoon and have some good times. But as I look around me, more and more people are forgetting. I guess what got to me is that often we say Jesus is the reason for the season. And I heard a conversation today that really bothered me. And the conversation was as simple as this. Jesus is the reason for season. By the way, did you get your Christmas shopping done? And it just kind of caught my ear. And as it caught my ear, I overheard this conversation. And I went somewhere else today. I was running some errands. And today's payday, which means it's payout day. And as I was running these errands, I heard a lot of people having that same conversation. It's staggering to me to think of how commercial we have made Christmas. When Santa Claus first started delivering gifts, and if you've been looking at my Facebook, you've noticed that I've been doing a Christmas trivia. The gifts were not plentiful. There weren't iPods, and they weren't expensive or extravagant. They weren't entitlement issues. They weren't even necessities. They were literally trinkets that would bring joy to a child's life, if even just for a moment. St. Nicholas started doing that because the kids needed stuff. And they didn't have anything. But to cater to all the children, he couldn't be specific. Even though oftentimes the gifts were exactly what the kids wanted. Or at least it's what they thought they wanted. What happened to our childlike mentality? Has it come to a point where everything evolves around getting paid? Paying off the credit cards, buying extravagant gifts that are going to be thrown to the side. Lisa and I have tried really hard not to spoil our children at Christmas. Our children don't have iPods, they don't have iPads, they don't have iPhones. Not that were bought by us. And I know that our kids have a lot of resentment towards us based on that fact. Because we don't spoil them. And that's okay. I can live with that. What I'm starting to wonder is, what have I taught my children? What have I taught my children? Starting to wonder, have I succeeded or have I failed? You know, Christmas should be about children. It should be about having a Christ-like attitude, a childlike attitude. Scripture tells us we can't even get into heaven without being childlike. I see people arguing in superstores over toys. I see families unraveling because of the financial stress. All in the name of Christmas. This is supposed to be a day or a time of celebration. And I can't imagine what Jesus himself is thinking. I mean, first of all, I'm not going to pretend to act like I can think what Jesus is thinking, but I have to wonder, does he really care for all these gifts? Does it matter to him if we have a tree or lights around the house? I mean, it does to us because it gets us prepared, if you will, for Christmas, mentally. To have Christmas ready and to be, festive, if you will. And also, you got to think about Christmas lights and gifts and decorations in the first place, because in the general scheme of things, winter's dreary. So what do? We put light to it. Christmas lights, decorations, holly, jolly, Santa Clauses, inflatables. By the way, I am not going to skip Christmas ever. But every Christmas, with every year that goes on and on and on, you start taking inventory of what's really important. This year, our budget was only like $300, $400, and I read some staggering statistics today online through several different articles, whether it be the New York Times or the DC Journal or Sacramento Bee or Tulsa World or News Today, whatever it is, that the average household spends $800 on Christmas. $800 on Christmas. Now that doesn't seem like a whole lot of money, but what could you do with $800? I mean, what could you do? And is it effective? Are the gifts that we're going to give, are they really necessary? Do they really impact somebody's life to a point that it's worth that kind of investment? I can't help but think these things, and I can't help but share them. And I don't know if I'm gonna post this video or not, but I just think that this time of year where we are supposed to be celebrating the birth of Christ, and we should be sharing the good news. Like the song says, go tell it on the mountain. And I don't think we're doing that anymore as believers or as non-believers. By the way, I'm a believer. But I even know that there are non-believers that celebrate Christmas, don't even call it holidays, ironically enough. But at the same time, for believers, we get caught up in the same garbage as non-believers. So what is one to do? That's the question. Do we reach out to our neighbors, our communities? Newtown just had a shooting in Connecticut. 20 children tragically killed. And everybody's blaming a madman. We failed him. As a community, we failed him. As believers, we failed him. As a nation, we have failed that young man. We allowed him to be in a situation without getting the help that he needed to get. We did not recognize or support the situation. And then the guy goes and gets firearms and does this atrocity. And now we're crucifying him as a Charles Manson. No, don't get me wrong. I am not sympathizing with this guy. What he did was horrific. The act was heinous. But could it have been prevented? Could it have been prevented? And the sad part is we'll never know. And the debt's already been paid. 26 lives. At Christmas, no less. So not only is it a great time of year by weather means, and economics, or I should say our economic foil as a nation, is compounded by poor leadership, by poor management. You know, I was reading this morning how the Speaker of the House, I can't think of his name. Anyways, they're talking about going to Plan B on the fiscal cliff. You know, if you and I were not to make a goal, we would be fired. We'd be fired. It's as simple as that. We would be told to pack our stuff and get the heck out of the building because we couldn't do our jobs. And this last year, the voters failed again. We have a president that's failing. We have a Congress that's failing. I don't care if it's Democratic or Republic. These guys go around spending money like it's water. They treat people like crap. They say they care, but yet you see very little movement on their part. The generation before mine, I think, saw something special in leaders. I don't care if they were actors. I don't care if they were governors. I don't care what. But the quality of leaders back then were different. They lived by conviction, morals, ethics. And granted, not all were great. Kennedy had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. And he was considered one of the greatest presidents of our nation. We know that other presidents had affairs as well. We are mere men, mere women. We're all faulted. We're all flawed. Yet this time of year, we seem to put commercialism and idols, such as money, articles, gifts, ahead of everything else. If you're watching this video today, I don't mean to preach. I'll get off the soapbox here in a second. Like I said, I don't even know if I'm going to post it or not. But I would encourage every single one of you who sees this video, if I post it, to take a different look at Christmas. Change your perspective on Christmas. What is it really about? Is it about getting the iPod, iPad, mini-pod, the new Verizon phone, AT&T phone? Those are all things of this world. They're all going to pass away. And I'm not saying you can't have fun. I just think about all the needy people out there that you could buy gift bags for of food or medical supplies or clothing, blankets. Interesting, huh? Something to think about, I guess. Maybe more for me than anybody else. And like I said, if you're watching this, I don't expect any feedback. I really don't care. It's just how I kind of feel right now. I'm not down. I'm not up. I'm just in that moment of reflection. I hope in 2013, I hope things get a whole lot better. And unfortunately, we've done so much damage to everything around us, have corrupted everything around us. Interesting. The scripture just popped into my head from 2 Timothy where he talks about that we will become a corrupt nation, that we will, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Interesting. And no, I'm not preaching into the world because I don't think that there's not enough signs and symptoms, if you will, of this world just yet. But it's definitely coming. I'm out.